Why, YouTubers, everything made at Latitude 0 is made out of miniatures and matte paintings. Hello YouTube, this is Adam Noyce of AN Productions, and welcome to this review for Ishiro Honda's kind of misplaced movie that is unfortunately only available in the West in a out-of-print DVD or in bootleg film thingy-McJigger. It's called Latitude 0. Latitude 0, I was able to get my hands on it at this year's G-Fest, G-Fest 22, and actually, first things first, I got a new hat. It's not as big as my other one, but hopefully it'll work. And it also has this thingy. It has the two thingies. We'll see how long that lasts. Anyways, back to Latitude 0. But I was able to get my hands on this DVD, and I was very thankful that I was able to get it with both the Japanese cut and the English cut to it. The Japanese cut is much shorter than the English cut, and I'm going to be talking about the English cut here for the record, even though there's not really much of a difference other than the Japanese version is just a lot faster paced. But the one thing that was interesting about this was that this was a joint production. Like a lot of films, like a lot of the early Godzilla films, and like War of the Gargantuas and Frankenstein Conquers the World, for example, they were joint productions with Henry G. Saperstein, where Henry G. Saperstein was going to, distribute them elsewhere outside of Japan. But that was it. This was a legit joint production. It's kind of interesting to note that at the same time in Toei, The Green Slime was being made, which was also a joint production between MGM and Toei. So a little interesting thing to go on here, that what basically this was the Americans that wrote it. Actually, the writer of this film wrote the script to them, which is a fantastically awesome and genuinely great film. But this was also based off of a radio serial that took place in the 1940s, which kind of explains a lot with this film, because this film very much so has a 40s Flash Gordon kind of vibe. In terms of like the costumes and stuff like that. And because of that, it's pure 60s cheese. And I truly mean that. This film is a joyride of hysterics because of how 60s this is. Like, this is Batman 66 levels of cheese. We have a villain who's bad for the sake of being bad. We have a good guy who's good for the sake of being good. No real motivations here. You have ridiculously over-the-top costumes that are very bright and very, very vibrant, which is very common in the 60s and in a way in the 70s. That's in full force here. It blows my mind how 60s this movie is. You even have an over-the-top soundtrack by Akira Ifukube, which his soundtrack for this film, if you listen to it on his own, is awesome because of how much it amplifies the cheesiness of this movie. First off, it's a great soundtrack, as always. Akira Ifukube, being one of my favorite film composers of all time, provides an absolutely rousing and amazing soundtrack here that does not let you down. It also fits the film. Like, it's not overly dark like it is in Space Amoeba, where in Space Amoeba his score really didn't fit the tonality of the movie. No, the soundtrack here fits the tonality of the movie pretty damn well. It just adds so much and works so well with the cheesiness of this movie. And that's another thing that I need to point out about this movie, is I don't think this movie was trying to be anything great at all. This movie knew it was cheesy. Everyone who was involved with it knew that the film was cheesy, and so they just ran with it. The greatest example being Cesar Romero, who I will get into a lot later. But because of that, I believe everyone just was like, let's have fun, including Ishiro Honda, and was like, okay, let's do this, with the major exception of Joseph Cotten. But again, we'll also get to him a little later. Just everything with this film is like over the top. This is also the last time Eiji Tsuburaya worked with Ishiro Honda on a film ever. Many people say it is Destroy All Monsters. Actually, Eiji Tsuburaya hardly even touched that film. It was given to a different guy who was an assistant director for King Kong Escapes, I believe. And he only like went on set like 3 times throughout that entire shoot. But anyways, it was indeed this film. He did indeed work on the special effects. He is credited as the director, unlike in Destroy All Monsters, where he's just a consultant. The actual director was somebody else. The same with Son of Godzilla, actually, as well. But this was also the last time that the 4 triumvirate of people work together. And the 4 triumvirate are the people that worked on the original Godzilla. We have Tomoyuki Tanaka, we have Eiji Tsuburaya, we have Tomoyuki Tanaka, who's the producer, we have Eiji Tsuburaya, who's the director of special effects, you have Akira Ifukube, who's doing the music, and you have the director helmed by Ishiro Honda. This is the last time that happened before Eiji Tsuburaya passed away. This was the last time it happened. I have to say it's kind of a letdown. It's kind of a letdown if you look at it like, oh, this is the last film, it's going to be great. No, it really isn't. It's nothing but 60s cheese. But it's still a load of fun. I just thought I'd say that as a bit of trivia. With that said, since I was talking about Eiji Tsuburaya, I want to talk about the special effects in this film first off. The special effects here, for the most part, are amazing and outstanding, as always with Eiji Tsuburaya, with some few exceptions. King Kong escapes. See, I've discovered something with Eiji Tsuburaya, was that like each kind of special effects director, Teruyushi Nakano, those kind of people, each had their kind of own fortes. Like the guy who directed, the guy who did the special effects director on Destroy All Monsters, it was wire work. Just watch that movie and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Teruyushi Nakano was explosions, hands down. Akira Watanabe was the usage of matte paintings and integrating those matte paintings into sets. That's because he was the art director. While Teruyushi Nakano was always the pyrotechnic guy. Stuff along that line. I finally think I've discovered Eiji Tsuburaya's forte. And his forte, I think, is stuff that takes place at sea. What do I mean by that? I mean stuff like miniature ships sailing, battles that take place at sea. For example, if you watch the movie Battle of the Japan Sea, which unfortunately I haven't seen in full, but I've seen the special effects scenes in that. Wow. Just type it up and you can watch it on YouTube with some overly dramatic music, but whatever. He's good at doing sea stuff. I mean, what made him famous was his recreation of Pearl Harbor in the 1940s. He's great at doing both stuff that takes place on top of the sea and below the sea. And what I mean by below the sea, there is an entire underwater, there's actually 2. No. There's just one underwater battle in this movie, and it's phenomenal. Is phenomenally well shot. And that being said, this film is no exception. All of the underwater and sea stuff here is beautiful. Like it's just majestic watching these miniatures, and I mean that. The battles that take place under the water. The first battle actually between the Black Shark, which is the bad guy ship, and the Alpha, which is the good guy ship, is so well done, and it's a rather lengthy battle as well, that the Japanese version actually cuts in half. It's a very lengthy battle, but it kept moving, and I bought it. And a lot of that was because, the music was there, certainly the acting wasn't there, but the editing was there, and it was shot pretty damn well. Like, you've got the ship suddenly going over here, you got torpedoes flying towards you, and then the cuts and they're going away from you. It's really, really well shot. It's really, really well edited, and because of that, it just comes together and it clicks, and it's a fun battle sequence that's very energetic, and you're like, yeah, what's going to happen next? And then some sequences you're on your toes, like, is she going to fight? Like, the Alpha has like this thing where it makes a double, which is fucking impossible, but I don't care. Makes like a double of itself, and it's like, is she going to pick the right one? And of course we know that she's going to pick the right one because we have the rest of the movie to go. But at the time I was like, this is actually kind of suspenseful, and the usage of music and definitely the special effects help. It's absolutely beautifully well done, and I got to applaud Eiji Tsuburaya for managing to pull off such great effects, because these are all miniatures just on wires. If you're thinking of it like that, it's just kind of pathetic, isn't it? I mean, that's how Star Wars was made, that's how Star Trek was made. If you think about it, those are just miniatures on wires. It sounds pathetic, but then you see it on the screen, especially in something like Toho scope like this, and it just blows your mind. And that's one reason why I love miniatures. That's one reason why I love suitmation. In fact, suitmation is my favorite form of visual effects. It's not stop motion, it's suitmation. This is the kind of stuff that makes me the special effects freak that I am. It's seeing movies and stuff like this that makes me go, oh my god, that's so cool. And we'll get into the number one reason why actually a little later. There's also a lot of double projection in this film, especially at Latitude 0. In fact, I think just about every exterior shot at Latitude 0 is a special effects shot. in complete honesty. Like, you have a lot of these shots where it's like stuff here is live action, but you got stuff in the background that's a miniature or a matte painting, or a matte painting over here, or even stuff that's in the foreground that's a matte painting, but stuff in the background that's really people walking about. And what's really interesting is that even the first shots of the movies, the special effects shots, like, for example, all the main human characters, the side characters, really, that they're going to study this underwater volcano, I think, and they're going down, they're being lowered. That's a miniature, but you have a perfectly composed shot that also integrates the deck of a real ship and people watching it going on, and at the same time you have these complete cutouts of people over at this corner, like helping the ship being moved. It's shit like that that makes me say Eiji Tsuburaya was like the master of his craft. And it's because he had nothing. He had nothing and he created something. In fact, that's his quote, that we learned from our poverty. We created from our poverty. That's why I love him. It's seeing shit like this and how well he's able to integrate it with one another. It's wonderful. In fact, there's a couple of shots where I was like, oh, that's a miniature. Oh shit, that's awesome. Like, there's this one where there's like these cows in the field. Half the cows aren't there, they're paintings. And there's a miniature mountainscape in the background with a miniature building here. These are just layers upon layers upon layers of stuff that, you know, anybody could do now with Adobe After Effects pretty easily. But back then it took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, it took a lot of precision. And it makes me admire Eiji Tsuburaya and his ability to bring the crew that he had. Because let's face it, Eiji Tsuburaya would have been nowhere without his fantastic crew. Yashijiro Inoue, who I still love for designing the Mesa cannons. You have Teruyushi Nakano, Akira Watanabe. His ability to bring all these creative people together, that's why his stuff is so good. And that's why he deserves the credit he gets. Yes, he was a tyrant on set. Everyone agrees, like he was like Akira Kurosawa levels of insane in terms of detail on his sets, even on the bad movies like King Kong Escapes. He was just so nitpicky about everything. But it's that nitpickiness that made everything good. That brought everything together, that brought everyone together and made such beautiful shit as this. Now, that being said, the suits in this movie are terrible. You know, I'm just praising him here, but now I'm going to shit on him here. Yeah, that's that typical review. The suits are so bad. They are laughably bad. Like, there's these bat creatures and the villain Malik in his kind of like evil lair that look so bad. Like, whenever they fly, you can see the wires as plain as day. It is so bad. Like, to me, it's like they didn't even try to hide them. They're like, yep, they're on wires. I highly doubt that was on purpose, but it feels like it was done on purpose. It is that laughably bad. Then we have these giant rats that you can see the zipper down their back, and I'm like, oh god, this is so embarrassing. Like, at least with Half Human and King Kong, they tried desperately to hide them, and that's why they gave Godzilla spikes in the first place, was so that they can hide the zipper. Here, it's just plain as day, and that's why Suit Nation does so bad when it comes to animals, but great when it comes to reptiles, because they can get away with it with reptiles, but they can't get away with this shit. And then there's the Griffin, which is the lion bat thingy. The lion, yeah, that's in this movie. It looks so bad. like it'll be... They used the suit from the get-go, and I'm like, oh god, it's so bad. And you can clearly see that it's on, like, its knees on its back legs. And I'm like, fuck. It looks so embarrassingly bad. And there's a lot of close-ups on his face, and I'm like, don't do that. Why would you do that? It just looks so bad. However, the thing that makes me actually admire this thing the most is that there's, at the beginning of this movie, the movie literally opens with, like, an explosion. An underwater volcano explodes. And that's what sets this movie in motion. All of the shots with how they did it was that they just basically, they had a water tank, right? A typical water tank, and they put a camera up to it. And they just turned that camera upside down. And they dumped paint into the tank. They dumped paint into the tank, and it created what looked like an underwater explosion. And it included the ripple effects and everything, and what they did was they shot at a higher frame rate, like they do just about all these effects, and it looks beautiful. Now, if that isn't ingenuity, I don't know what is. It's shit like that kind of stuff is what makes me love this kind of stuff and admire it and do all that crap. Like that. Wow, that it's paint. Really, that's paint. That's what made it. Wow, it looks so cool, and they just mixed all these colors together and it makes it look like a genuine explosion. It's beautifully well done and well crafted. Now that I've just spent about 15 minutes ranting about the special effects, it's about time that I actually talk about the nitty and gritty stuff of the movies first. I'm going to talk about the human cast. Now, with the exception of the both Captain Mackenzie, played by Joseph Cotten, and Malik, played by Cesar Romero, the rest of the human cast is so utterly pointless and boring. In fact, it actually kind of detracts from the movie a little bit, but yet I'm also like, but this is typical 60s cheese, so I'm kind of able to buy it. And what do I mean by that? We have, like, Akira Takarada, which interesting thing about Akira Takarada is that normally he'd be dubbed in a movie like this. Like, for example, in Invasion of the Astro Monster, he spoke Japanese and was dubbed while Nick Adams spoke regular English. Here, Akira Takarada and all the Japanese cast in this movie learned their lines phonetically, and so we actually hear his voice. Okay, that's a plus, but we can only understand him half the time. Like, it's not Dr. Shirogami levels of bad from Godzilla vs. Biollante, but it's pretty goddamn bad. There were scenes where I had to turn on the subtitles for him, and I'm like, I can't understand what you're saying. I would have dubbed him over, just matched him to his lips, but no. They didn't dub him over. I would have done what they did in Midway for Toshiro Mifune. Have some famous voice actor like Paul Frees just dub him over. Or Robbie the Robot. Yeah, for the record, that is Robbie the Robot's voice that we hear in Invasion of Astro Monster coming out of Akira Takarada's mouth. Awesome. But anyways, Akira Takarada's character, he's the typical scientist. We have Richard Jekyll, who is wicked hot, but I don't care. He also plays in The Green Slime. I think they were shooting these at the same time, that's why. But he's the wisecracker. Which actually, on a side note, it's like they were trying to attempt to do another buddy-buddy thing. Because if you look at it, in Invasion of Astro Monster, which was only made a couple years previous, Invasion of Astro Monster was a very buddy-buddy movie. You have Nick Adams and Akira Takarada, who have great chemistry together, and you can tell our friends just by how they act with each other. That's what's coming here, even though Richard Jekyll's a reporter and Akira Takarada is the scientist. They're always side by side, they're always standing with each other, they're always cracking jokes with each other, they're always, like, having a debate with each other. That's what I'm talking about. You know, that's what I mean by the buddy-buddy. It was like they were trying to attempt to do that. I mean, this is pretty poorly done, but it's like they're trying to do that. And it is very clear to me. It was intended that Nick Adams was to play the role that Richard Jekyll ended up playing. And there's a big reason why Nick Adams didn't do that. And that's because in 1968, the year previous, Nick Adams had committed suicide. And so they went with kind of like the second best. First off, the reasons why Nick Adams killed himself is just absolutely tragic and absolutely horrible. But anyways, if I ever review Invasion of Astro Monsters, I'll talk about it there. But Richard Jekyll was like their second best choice, because what Jekyll has is Jekyll is not only cute, but he's also kind, he's cunning, and he looks like a typical American. He also has a voice of a typical American. He's very good at presenting a wisecracker. He's very good at presenting a troublemaker. For example, I mean, watch The Devil's Brigade or, what's the movie with Lee Marvin? The Dirty Dozen. Watch those movies that he's in, for example, if you want some more examples of Richard Jekyll's acting, other than in a tokusatsu film. Anyways, back to reality. There's also a French guy. He's French my ass. Like, I saw him and it's explained, Dr. Misso, Tommy Wiseau, his name is Dr. Misso, and it's Joseph Cotten's narration says that he's French, and I'm like, he's French my ass. He's clearly fucking Japanese. He just looks slightly less Asian. And he's the man to fall in love with the doctor or the female lead in the movie. That's what goes on. Then there's the doctor, who's the female lead in this movie, who, her acting, I'm gonna go this far, is Tommy Wiseau levels of bad. Granted, she didn't have any acting classes. First off, she just turned 21 while they were filming this movie. She was really young, but she was a model. She was a teenage model in Japan. And her acting is so bad. I would say I've seen more emotion come from a Vulcan from Star Trek, but that's adding insult to the Vulcans. She is that bad. She speaks in a completely monotonous voice, a monotone voice, and she blinks a lot. She's that kind of acting. And she's clearly reading a script off camera. There's actually a couple lines where you can see her eyes moving. It's almost like I was watching a Nostalgia Critic movie. And on top of that, she does literally nothing to progress the plot. Because every time that the human characters go and do something, she is told to stay on the ship and guard the ship while the men go out and do manly things. So she is clearly she's just there to add sex appeal to it for the male audience. That's why she's there. And she's by far the worst thing about this movie, I'm going to say. Every time she says a line, luckily she doesn't have many lines. She has even less in the Japanese version, thank God. But that's the worst thing about this movie. Every time she opens her goddamn mouth, I laugh hysterically. And on top of that, she wears the most ridiculous costume I have ever fucking seen for a doctor in a futuristic sci-fi movie. She's literally got a golden bra. She's wearing like a golden bikini, and she's wearing a see-through plastic outfit on top of that, which I'm like, what the fuck's the point of that? But whatever, it's supposed to look futuristic-y. It's so laughable. And it's not like that's just what she was wearing because they were just swimming or anything. No, she wears that throughout the entire movie. While it's like all the women in this movie are wearing golden bikinis, and that's it at Latitude 0. And I'm just sitting there like, oh god. I would have loved to have seen the wardrobe on this movie. Just spray paint a bunch of bikinis gold and you're all set. That's the wardrobe for this movie. Well, on top of that, all the humans wear these really over-the-top costumes. Like, there's this one, Joseph Cotten's character wears like a V-neck thingy that I'm like, oh god. It's so 60s. It's so beautifully 60s that it's like, if it didn't say it's like if somebody just watched this off the top of their hand and was like, they had no information or previous knowledge of the movie, they'd know immediately just by the costumes how 60s this movie is. Oh, it's so beautiful. Anyway, so let's talk about the two wonderful things about this movie. The first, and that are the good guy, Joseph, who is Mackenzie, Captain Mackenzie, and Malik, who is the evil guy, aka the Joker without the makeup. And I'm going to start with Joseph Cotten. Poor Joseph Cotten. You know, he's played in Citizen Kane, and he's a phenomenal actor. He played in The Third Man. He's a great leading man. And suddenly he's thrown into this movie. And I'm not kidding, and it's so beautiful. And I mean that. It is so beautiful to watch. He is shit-faced. Every single scene he's in, he is drunk off his mind. It is so awesome. He's slurring all of his lines. All of his lines are slurred. He sounds like if somebody crossed a drunk Christopher Walken and a drunk William Shatner. That's how he acts in this movie. Like, there's scenes where he's clearly reading the cue cards off camera. It's so bad. And it's not like Ishiro Honda could do like a take two, because Joseph Cotten hated being in this movie so much that he refused to do anything more than one take. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, every single scene he's in a huge chunk of this movie, was done in 1, 2, or at most 3 takes. Joseph Cotten was a dick making this movie as well. And it's so hysterical to watch because of that. But you know, there's no motivation for why he's good. He's kind of, I think he's the leader of Latitude 0, even though Latitude is a completely communistic place at the bottom of the ocean at Latitude 0, which I actually like the concept of Latitude 0, where it's like a big underwater utopia. It's like Rapture, except if Rapture didn't go fucking apeshit insane. That's what Latitude Zero is, and it's kind of awesome that way. Like, aesthetically, it looks awesome, but he's like, we're not political, even though it's explained that they help humanity only when they see fit. So I'm like, you're being political right there. Whatever, that's 60s logic right there. It's a beautiful thing. It's actually kind of interesting. Like, what if there was something there, and that's why we have all these people that are real genius. Like this movie explains that all the major geniuses in the world came from Latitude Zero, or have been helped by Latitude Zero. Okay, and like it's explained that the Alpha first went out in like 1806, I believe. That's when it first set sail. So we had like, it kind of reminded me of the Nautilus from Jules Verne in that way. And it's also explained that Mackenzie and Malick, for that matter, everyone at Latitude Zero is hundreds of years old, basically, because of how much their technology has progressed. I'm like, that's all cool ideas. It's just so poorly executed and so 60... Well, it's not poorly executed. It's just so 60s in its execution that you laugh at everything that you see and just have a blast watching everything happen in the film. So anyways, that's Joseph Cotten. And then we have the beautiful Cesar Romero giving the performance of a lifetime. It's fantastic watching him. He's so over the top. Unlike Joseph Cotten, Cesar Romero actually said he had a blast working on this movie because of how much he got to go over the top. He knew this movie was bad. He was like, it's like Jeremy Irons in, except not as famous. It's like Jeremy Irons in Dungeons and Dragons, where everyone knew that the movie was going to be bad. So Jeremy Irons just said, "Can I go over the top?" And the director's like, "Sure." And that's what happened here. Cesar Romero was like, "Can I just go over the top?" And Ishiro Honda was like, "Yeah." And bam, we get this beautiful, beautiful performance of a lifetime. And he makes the movie. It's almost like, this performance is almost as good as Doctor Who from King Kong Escapes. Like, if anything, watch this movie for Cesar Romero. It is awesome. Everything from his laugh, to how he walks, to just like everything. Like, he's so over the top that every single scene you're in, you're just drawn. You're just fucking drawn to him. Like, you gotta see what he's doing, and it's hysterical. He just has so much fun watching it, and that's what I think sets this movie apart from like a movie like King Kong Escapes. King Kong Escapes is really dull and boring, and I find myself not paying attention except for the scenes with Doctor Who in it. This, it's so fun that I'm just watching it and having a total blast. It's very hard to explain, but you know, it's awesome. He also has like the best costumes ever. Like they're so 60s. Like he has like these really high boots that go up to his knees. He has a cape just to add insult to injury. Like, in case you didn't know he's the bad guy, he's bad because he has a cape. Kind of like a Doctor Who kind of cape. I forgot which Doctor it was, but he had like a cape. He wore a cape. He has that kind of cape here. He's got a wicked epic mustache, but that's what Cesar Romero always has. He has this epic mustache. His hair is perfectly slicked back. He's the perfect bad guy. And there's no reason why he has to be bad. He's literally just bad because he just wants to be bad. Like, that's all. Even his name is over the top, Malick, which means murderer. It's just awesome. And Cesar Romero in this movie gets all the pussy, alright? He gets every bit of it. He has Lucretia, who is like the person he clearly loves. First off, just a testament to Cesar Romero. The scenes with him and Lucretia are together, which is just about every scene that is in the film. The way how the two look at each other, they look like they genuinely love each other. Like just a little bit of eye contact. It's kind of like, it's hard to explain because I can't really call it good because it's still over the top, but it's just these subtle little movements, like the way how he puts his hand on her shoulder and just rubs her shoulder as he walks by, or the way how he glances at her as he goes by, just sells to me that they're in love, and it's a great thing. Now, at the same time, there is the captain of the Black Shark, who is a really ugly Asian chick, and she is madly in love with Cesar Romero, Malick. And I don't know why, because it's explained that because Cesar Romero is an older man in this movie. He's actually 227 years old, to be exact. He's an old bag. But she is madly in love with him, and the only reason why she's captaining the Black Shark is because she's like, "I just want time to be alone with you, Commander." It's not much of an exaggeration of what she sounds like. In fact, that is the exact line. But Cesar Romero gets all the pussy. Now, speaking of the captain of the Black Shark, let's talk about the Griffin. The Griffin, what happens is the Griffin is made by putting the wings of an eagle on that of a shark. I just created the next sci-fi movie. Why did I say shark? On the wings of a lion. And it looks so bad. But what Cesar Romero's plan is for this ultimate death machine is to put the brain of the captain of the Black Shark into the and replace the lion's brain with her brain. First off, that doesn't work because the cranial cavity size does not fit at all. But this is the 60s, and I'll buy it because it's so over the top. But on top of this, right, Romero tricks her into thinking that she's going to sleep with him, and instead he locks her in a room and puts her in a cage. Like, traps her in a cage. He's like, no, damn you! And that's actually what she said. She's like, no, damn you! Like she's trying to pull a Charlton Heston from Planet of the Apes. But, so she is now pissed off at Malik, right? For doing this to her, and she's begging him for him not, and then he puts a serum in her to knock her out so that he can cut open her head and put her brain in the lion, and she's like, I will get you for this. Why? If she just swore that she's gonna fucking kill you, why would you want to put her brain into that of a killing machine? That makes no sense, and it completely backfires later because the Griffin attack. It's what kills Cesar Romero. The Griffin attacks the Black Shark. So why would you want to do that? It makes no goddamn sense. Why? And it's pretty clear that you have a lot of these devoted people who believe in what Malik is doing. Why not say the plan to them, give the plan away to them, and have a volunteer do it? That would make a lot more sense. And goddamn it, that Griffin probably would have killed Mackenzie right away because Mackenzie's out in the open. And quite frankly, being kind of slow and sluggish and stupid. Probably because he's drunk. Anyways. But no, they put the brain... they put the brain of the woman that hates Malik into the lion. And he's pulling it. He acknowledges it too. Like, this is the great thing about it, is that Malik is like, why isn't she attacking that goddamn bitch? I knew I shouldn't have done that. Like, you're damn right. You shouldn't have done that, you fucking idiot. Anyways. Now, it's very clear that this is the rivalry of the movie between Joseph Cotten and Cesar Romero, and it's awesome. Just the way how they look at each other, the way how they deal with each other, just fucking despise one another. It's fantastic. For example, the opening battle scene, he's like, Joseph Cotten's like, oh damn, I hate that man. And first off, Cesar Romero's like, I love this man. What would I do without him? He's so much fun. He's the fucking Joker without the makeup and an awesomer mustache. And it's just awesome to see that kind of, especially in Cesar Romero, energy in a movie like this. It's what makes a movie like this worth watching, is just how much energy someone like that puts forth into a role. It's awesome. But it's that rivalry that really just kind of keeps the movie moving, because Malik has tried to take over the world for centuries, and it's always been Captain Mackenzie to stop him. And like, there's this great line that Cesar Romero says where he's like, oh, that damn Mackenzie is always adding new tricks to that confounded machine. Exact line. And I'm like, yes. You know, it's lines like that that make me love it, and just love this rivalry. It's a lot of fun. I actually want to talk about the ships, because I love the ships in this movie. There's the Alpha, which is the good guy, and then there's the Black Shark, which is the bad guy, which I just need to say, aesthetically, the Black Shark looks a lot like the Nautilus from the 1954 movie 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Just wanted to point that out there. But we have the Alpha. These are really badass ships. Like, every time I see them, I'm like, oh shit, I want these two things to fight. And it does not let you down, because they fight not once, but twice. And it's awesome. Mackenzie, as I just said, is always changing things to the Alpha, which always keeps Malik on his toes, which is awesome, and just goes to that rivalry thing even more. Like, for example, at the ending of the film, Malik thinks that he's got a one up on Mackenzie, and he's pulling the Alpha into a magnetic field. But no, the Alpha can fly, which they foreshadowed because Mackenzie says have them work on the bow rudders, or fix the bow rudders. When they first go to Latitude 0, they actually foreshadowed that, so okay, some cleverness in the script. But it's awesome, and the look on Malik's face is like, it can fly. He's like, was so defeated. He's like, God damn it, I hate that man, but I love him. And it's awesome. It's but yeah, the thing with the Alpha is that it's not heavily armed or anything like that, but it's got so many gadgets and so many tricks up its sleeve. It's kind of like a magician or like an alchemist in like a video game where it can get away with a lot of stuff because of that. And then we have the Black Shark, which is a very big, bulky ship with a shit ton of weapons in it and an awesome laser cannon, which makes no sense why they'd be able to fire that underwater, but whatever. And the way how they shoot the two battle scenes that take place between the Alpha and the Black Shark, it's kind of like how they approached King Kong and Godzilla in King Kong vs. Godzilla, where they clearly played with their strengths and weaknesses. While King Kong was very fast and very quick thinking, Godzilla was like a goddamn tank. It's kind of like this. The Alpha's the tank, while the Black Shark is the tank, while the Alpha is the quick-moving ship. Wonderful stuff here. Now, I just need to do this as a complaint. The final action sequences where the human characters are going to Malik's base and actually land and stuff like that, here's the problem. Ishiro Honda is not... What I should say is that I believe Jun Fukuda would have been the more fitting director for this movie, other than Ishiro Honda. Now, there's a reason why Ishiro Honda was picked, and to be honest, the reason why I said Jun Fukuda is only because I'm saying this in hindsight. If I was in Toniyuki Tanaka's place and said, oh, we're going to have another joint production between the United States and us, yes, I'd go with Ishiro Honda, because Ishiro Honda had done it many, many, many times before. He's worked with English actors just about all his career. We have Gorath, for example, Battle in Outer Space, The Mysterians. Hell, look at like Frankenstein Conquers the World with Nick Adams and War of the Gargantuas with Russ Tamblyn. He's worked with English actors his whole life. He can kind of direct them. And so Toniyuki Tanaka said, we have another project for you. And Ishiro Honda, being the loyal man he was, instead of going, no, fuck that shit, I don't want to direct another sci-fi film, said, okay. And went on to direct this. But the problem is, Ishiro Honda is not very good at directing physical action sequences. For example, there's one in Battle in Outer Space that Ishiro Honda openly admitted that he felt uncomfortable directing this action scene. So what he did was he left it up to the imagination. Suddenly, you saw the beginning of it, and the camera pans over, and it's hidden behind a bunch of crates. He did the same thing in Mothra vs. Godzilla. When you hear the gunshot, it cuts to Godzilla. You don't actually see the gun being shot. You don't see the fight actually going on. It cuts to Godzilla, and then he cuts back, and you see the aftermath. That's Ishiro Honda. That's what he did, because he knew his weakness, and that was shooting these action. He's very good at directing talking scenes. He's very good at directing scenes with people around a table talking. He's good at making those scenes intense. But he's not good at directing action. And this entire finale of the film is nothing but one gigantic action sequence. And in my opinion, and that's being said, Ishiro Honda has directed a lot of action-packed movies. For example, first off, there is an exception to that. The action sequences in Destroy All Monster are awesomely entertaining and are awesomely well shot, awesomely well choreographed, and awesomely well just edited and put together. But anyways, you have his other films that have a lot of actions. The three that come to my mind are The Mysterians, Battle in Outer Space, and Atragon. Especially Atragon because of the final act. Here's the difference between those movies and this. Atragon, Battle in Outer Space, and The Mysterians were all special effects spectacles. Like, they needed a lot of those wide shots to show off the sets. They needed a lot of these wide, long takes to just show you the massive scale of everything. This wasn't supposed to be a spectacle. This movie wasn't even trying to intend to be a spectacle. It was just trying to be a generic sci-fi movie. And because of that, the action sequences towards the end really lack a lot of energy. It could be because Joseph Cotten was drunk off his mind. But no, a lot of that was Ishiro Honda, because a lot of these action sequences are all static, wide shots with very little camera movements, other than like a couple zoom-ins or push-ins and stuff like that. And the shots linger. And that was because that was Ishiro Honda's downfall. Jun Fukuda, why I said Jun Fukuda would have been better for that is because Jun Fukuda, what he would have done was, for example, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and Godzilla vs. the Sea Monsters have phenomenally well done action sequences. He knew how to direct them. That was his forte. That was, other than comedy, he knew how to direct action. And like he did a lot of weird editing tricks as well. Quick cuts, close-ups. He used a bunch of ranges of close-ups, extreme close-ups, medium shots. Very rarely a really long wide shot. Well, Ishiro Honda just used wide shots. But man, is this film a lot of fun. This film is so much fun to watch. It's just a gem to sit through. And because of that, I recommend it. I only recommend it, though, to... Like, this isn't like... This movie is bad, don't get me wrong. This movie is actually really bad. But it's an enjoyable kind of bad. It's like the Green Slime kind of bad. This isn't like an X from Outer Space kind of bad, where it's better to sit with... Or The Room kind of bad, where it's best to watch that movie with a bunch of enthusiasts and just sit down and just riff the movie. This is the kind of bad where you can be alone and just watch it and just have fun. Like Godzilla vs. Megalon, The Green Slime... Those kind of movies. They can just sit back and have a fun time. It's that level of bad. And because of that, I recommend it to Tokusatsu fans, Ishiro Honda fans, and fans of special effects. I recommend watching this. And hell, fans of 66 Batman, watch this. I give this movie 2.5 out of 4 stars. It's really bad, but watch it. I recommend it. So, that being said, like the Godzilla Saga on Facebook, like my new movie, Which Way They Walk, on Facebook. Do stay tuned for more updates for that. We've resumed production in September. Like AM Productions on Facebook, like the Sons of Sarazawa Network homepage on Facebook, like this video, hit the subscribe, leave a comment if you've seen this video, say what your opinion is on it. I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on this movie. And this is Adam Noyce from Adam Noyce saying, sayonara.